Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Miller, your host. And I want to thank our sponsor, Farm Plate. They're a software company committed to creating tomorrow's food ecosystem today. And I'm excited about our guest today. We have with us Anna Pierce. She is the Director of Sustainability for Tate Lyle. Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we are excited to dive into sustainability. It is a big topic these days, and I'm so excited about all that you're doing and all that Tate Lyle is doing. But first of all, for our listeners, give us a little bit of an overview of Tate Lyle as a company, who they are and what they do.
Sure. Tate Lyle is a 160-year-old ingredients innovation company. So we are a leading ingredient provider to the food and beverage industry. We help customers work to find healthier solutions that make healthy food tastier for consumers. We're a business-to-business company, and we work with some of the largest CPGs in the world.
Very good. And that is why most of the consumers that might be listening to us may not have heard your company name, even though you're 160 years old and involved in a lot of the different brands that we consume on a regular basis. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct. We're very much a business-to-business company working with the consumer-facing brands to really develop new innovations that make healthier products for consumers that ultimately have a lower environmental impact than perhaps the ingredients that we used just a few years ago.
Amazing. And you, innovation is at the forefront of a lot that you do as well.
Yes. When we think about products that we are developing and innovating iterations of with our customers, one of the cornerstones of that is making sure that we are making those innovations with sustainability in mind. So it doesn't help solve the world's hunger problem if we're developing ingredients that have a larger carbon footprint or use more water in a more intensive process. So those are some of our key KPIs that we're not only trying to find healthier solutions, we're trying to make sure that they have a lower footprint and they're better for the planet.
Right. And, sustainable agriculture is kind of a phrase that we hear a lot, but I know that's at the forefront of a lot of that you do as well. What is sustainable agriculture for, again, our listeners out there? How would you describe that?
I think if you ask everyone has a little bit of a different answer that's somewhat similar. So for us, we talk about sustainable agriculture because there's two key components to our program. The first is principles of regenerative agriculture, which is one of the hotter terms replacing sustainable agriculture in a lot of places. And that really focuses on improving the soil health. So healthy soil grows better crops, they're more resilient to climate change, they have less environmental impact, and they ultimately sequester carbon. So agriculture is seen as one of the last great hopes, really, to combat global warming in a similar way that we used to talk about forests and reforestation projects that really had a splash 5-7 years ago. We're seeing that same level of effort and energy around regenerative agriculture and crops because it really probably is one of the last great hopes that we have to really build a more sustainable food system. The other component and why we talk about sustainable agriculture is core to our purpose. We have to make sure that we're improving the lives of the communities where we live and work. And that's making sure that we're not just implementing practice changes by the farmers, but that we're also doing so in the mindset of their own sustainability and resilience and livelihoods. So it's not a prescriptive approach in we're working with experts, we want you to do this because it's going to be great for you. It has to have a positive return on investment for them, because otherwise that change isn't in and of itself sustainable. So it's really building true change that's lasting, that has a better impact on the environment and the local communities.
That is the best definition I've heard. Absolutely.
Well,
Great.
thank you,
Anna. And the whole focus on the farmer, that's so important as well, because you're right. We want the farmers to keep farming, and we want to help them to farm in ways that are better. And innovation is helping us discover those ways, and we can educate them. So I love that focus and that you brought that in. to help explain the sustainability piece and also the regenerative piece, because we do want to be able to take care of the resources that we have. Land is like our largest resource for agriculture. And I know there have been forays into other growing methods, but really land is number one at this point. And so the more we can take care of that and do good by the people who are farming that land and help them, the better it is. So thank you so much for that. Well, what is happening on the product ingredient side? Are there things that we would recognize that Tate & Lyle is involved in, and how are you iterating those to help improve?
I think, we have expertise in sweetening and fortification and texture. So we really develop those ingredients that help reduce sugar. So one of our key ingredients is stevia and stevia-based products. When we talk about our stevia products, part of that goes back again to sustainable and responsible sourcing. So it's our sustainable stevia program. We are in our third year now of a pilot that we had started in Eastern China with small shareholder farmers on sustainable stevia. The program's in partnership with Earthwatch Europe and Nanjing Agricultural University. So we really have experts on the ground with the farmers talking through, how do you take a soil sample? How do we understand the results of the soil sample? And what does that mean in terms of practice change? And then how do you make the practice change, right? It's not just understanding a report, but how do you physically go from what I was doing yesterday to what I could be doing differently tomorrow? It takes a level of expertise and helping farmers that aren't farming in an industrialized setting to really understand what change looks like, and what in some cases good looks like. Our program in the last 2 years, we've seen double-digit reductions in every category that we measure in the life cycle analysis. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think when we look at stevia, it's been farmed for 40 years, corn, tens of thousands. Of course, there's going to be opportunity to really share that experience and expertise and think about the way that they're farming. For them, they saw a 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in 2 years, which is, I mean, unbelievable.
That is, that's a really impressive number. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Frankly, we weren't either. I mean, a double-digit reduction is enough to celebrate, and it really goes back to them understanding the soil health, taking samples, getting expertise. The driver behind it was really fertilizer optimization. So they decreased their fertilizer use by 60 to 80%. So less money spent on inputs, less time spent applying the fertilizer. And then they saw an increase in the yield, which then increases their revenue. So when you start to think about doing good for the planet, doing good for the farmer, that's an example that we're seeing more and more farmers in the area and part of our supply chain organically coming back and saying, we want to be part of this. So we do definitely have a slower start in the program. I think COVID helped us slow down our pace more than maybe what we would have liked, but the results have been really honest in bringing the farmers along on the journey with us and meeting them where they are. And some of them are more advanced than others, but there clearly was opportunity for improvement and a real sense of pride for the farmers and cooperatives that are participating. There's a direct impact to the community and some really nice improvements in local water quality and biodiversity associated with the program.
Right. If you're lowering the use of fertilizers, you're increasing how much money they can make. The word is going to start spreading quickly. And I can see where, it's kind of like train the trainer. The farmers will be training each other once they understand and can utilize that. And that's the way you'll be able to leverage and scale a little bit, because otherwise it's a really, let's face it, a very labor intensive, the investment that Tate & Lyle is making in this program, it's front heavy. I mean, you're putting the people on the ground to figure out how to do the soil testing, teach the soil testing, actually execute on the changes that are deemed necessary or good to be made. And so that's a big investment on the front end. So congratulations on that. On the consumer trend piece, all of us are looking to reduce our sugar intake. So thank
Right.
you for focusing on stevia. It's a very popular product. And obviously, farmers want to do things the way they've always done them, probably even truer in the corn area where the volumes are a lot greater and things have been done the way they've been done for a lot longer, as you were saying. So that's also probably an open frontier for this type of intervention.
Yes. So in the corn space, it definitely is a lot more industrialized and a lot more mature, which comes with some farmers that say we've been doing this for generations and we've got this and we're good. And also comes with a lot of farmers that are the true conservationists that are pushing us and pushing other companies to think about maybe we should be doing things a little bit differently. Our sustainable agriculture program not only focuses on stevia, and the opposite corner is corn. So we go from small shareholder farmers to really industrialized corn programs in the States. That's in partnership with Primient, which is a division of Tate Lyle that we divested in early 2022, along with Truterra, which is the sustainability of business of Land O'Lakes. Land O'Lakes is one of the largest grower-owned cooperatives in the US. And when you think about who you're partnering with and what kind of change you want to make, a big part of that is making sure that the farmers participating in the program trust you, trust the guidance that the experts are giving them to really, again, make that lasting change and lasting impact. So for us, philosophically aligning with a grower-owned company, there's an inherent level of trust that their being Truterra is not going to tell the farmer to do something that isn't in the farmer's best interest. It's just not their business model.
Right.
And for us, that really rang true and rang back to our purpose. And philosophically, we were aligned, but we were also very aligned in the approach. We collect data on 100% of the acres that are enrolled in the program. We started the program in 2018. We went up to 1.5 million acres enrolled in the program in 2019 through 2021 before our divestiture. We're around 439,000 acres now. It's equivalent to our global annual corn use. And it's important to understand that supply chain and really work with them. And again, that expertise to help them think about, well, what does practice change look like in an industrial process? Am I just doing something different? Do I need to apply for a loan and get different farming equipment? Like, what inputs do I need to think about? And the conversations are happening now for the programs that we're going to pilot, that we're going to expand on in the 2024 crop year. So it's definitely not a process that you can kind of wake up and say, I think we're going to go do this tomorrow. It takes some real analytics and expertise and conversations to think through how can we make a difference and still make it impactful and beneficial to the farmers that are participating.
Absolutely. And those are large numbers, Anna. So you aren't going to, it's not like the local farmer where you have 10 of them who are farming these 20 acres or whatever, smaller numbers. The large industrial, like the corn in the United States that you're talking about, those are huge numbers, but sounds like a great partnership and a great company to start with, because it is farmer owned, essentially. I mean, the shareholders are the ones that everybody cares. So the initiatives do have to, like you said, fit their business model, and the focus is different, and they want to make the positive changes that are best for everyone all the way around. That's so exciting. I'm so glad to be able to share this information with our listeners. I hope they're excited to hear it out there. And you've also written a lot about sustainability too. You try to get the word out there. You're trying to share some of what's happening, because there's a lot more than, I mean, if you get up from just the farmer, we're talking about other benefits to the larger society as well, such as the carbon. Well, you can talk about those. Emissions and I cover some of those other benefits as well to the general community.
I mean, I think for us, if you think about the supply chain, it does start with that agricultural source product, whether it's stevia, whether it's corn. They're two of our largest. So that's why we have sustainable agriculture programs focused in those areas. it's decreasing the carbon footprint of that corn. So then that decreases our own scope 3 emissions of our supply chain. And then as we process the corn into the ingredients our customers are buying from Tate and Lyle, it's decreasing the carbon footprint of the emissions of the products that they're buying every day. I think as we set more ambitious climate change targets and science-based targets, and our customers do, and consumers, particularly since COVID, are more than ever engaged in climate change discussions and thinking about buying decisions based on environmental impact, where maybe 5 years ago we weren't, right?
Right.
It's definitely more of a topic of conversation. It's important that our ambitions align with the ambitions of our customers, and that we partner on that journey to make products that have less of an impact, whether that's through the agriculture programs, our own processing of those ingredients, and innovation behind that, to our customers processing them. We all have to be in alignment to achieve those targets. And I think, you look back a decade ago, everyone was worried about our own fence line, right? You have your factory fence line. I'm worried about my scope 1 and 2 emissions, my water, my waste. Focus solely on your own company, not thinking about that larger value chain picture and just how much we all depend on each other to share information, to think about innovation, to partner and trial things that may be fantastic and might not be, but we learn something from it. The space has changed incredibly rapidly. And honestly, I think for the better. It just takes more conversations and more stakeholders, which is a good thing.
Well, I think that there's a lot to be gained from the food industry being more cooperative, especially on the front end of the supply chain, like you're talking about. Some of the lessons that you're learning right now with how to do better in the farming area, gosh, those can be shared across the world. And Tate and Lyle can help lead some of that change by collaborating with other larger companies that maybe are working on different crops, but the process is the same that you're going through, and you're establishing some benchmarks to be able to reach for. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's I think with the stevia program, you have to prove your idea works, right? So you have to kind of pilot it and trial it. And sometimes that's in partnership with customers, and sometimes you start to sort that out to really think through, how do we partner with customers on ingredients that are used in such a small quantity, right? Stevia is an intense sweetener, so we're not using the high volumes that translate to high volumes in their product and high emissions. So it's definitely a different approach, but I do think there's a place and a space for that kind of partnership and those kind of trials to really say, are we making a difference here? And making sure that we have some substance behind the programs, especially when we start to think about greenwashing, right? You have to have substance behind what you're doing, have to be able to back it up. Those sustainability claims have to check out and have to be verified by a third party. It's a space that's confusing to a lot of consumers. There's a lot of different labels. There's not a big standard like we would see with organic or GMO. So we have to really make sure that what we're telling our customers and what they're telling consumers is really transparent the whole way through that supply chain. And this is a big part of that.
Yeah. And that's great to hear that there's just some credibility there from Tate and Lyle as far as the transparency piece, because I think consumers are also often looking at companies who everybody's jumping on the sustainability wagon. And I think the question is, what are they really doing? Are they just saying that, or what's really happening? So I think it's really important what you're saying about the execution piece and the transparency or a window into that, to be asking the right questions and to be verifying along the way. Are we making difference? Is this working? If not, let's change that. How can we make a better impact in this area and do better? So that's a really great approach. Thanks for sharing that with us. And my hope is that, a larger company like Tate and Lyle is going to be a great visionary to lead other smaller companies down this path, because really the ripple effect is where we're going to see a great benefit worldwide. If we can get not only larger companies, medium-sized companies, and even the smaller that are dealing with maybe some local farmers just adopt some of these practices, and even a small amount will make a difference when
Absolutely.
you multiply it.
And I think it's one of the great realizations is that you don't have to have all of the answers. I'm not an agronomist. I don't expect to know more than the partners that we partner with. We partner with them for a reason. So I think sometimes in all of our functional and professional careers, we all think I have to be the absolute expert in every single thing. No, you don't. No one's going to listen to me in terms of changing farming practices, but they might listen to the agriculture university with the professors and experts. Of course they will. So I think it's making sure that we don't try to solve for everything ourselves, which is sometimes the danger, right? Like we're going to figure this out. Agriculture has helped bridge that gap of we really need to do this together and partner with NGOs and conservationists and talking to farmers and different associations that maybe we wouldn't have talked to before because we were all thinking like, we're just going to go solve this. So I think it has kind of brought that collective thought to how do we do this? And the conversations, to your point, when you look across the supply chain, about half of our customers have either science-based greenhouse gas reductions or public greenhouse gas reductions. So that's a big portion of our customer base that as we have ambitious targets, it's starting a whole nother conversation, not just with our suppliers, but going upstream and saying, we need data from you as your supplier because that impacts our emissions and we have these targets, and what targets do you have? And if you don't have any, have you thought about having them? And I think that conversation coming both ways through the supply chain from customers down to suppliers and back upstream, it does have some influence in terms of, well, wait a minute, where's my program at?
That's right.
I think when you're the supplier, in a lot of cases, yes, we meet the customer's requirements and you check the boxes and you have the targets and the programs behind it. When you have those conversations with customers that don't have targets, it's a different influencing discussion, but one that's happening. And I think it's happening, in all sectors all over as we all are focused on climate change and really getting to net zero. It's driving a different conversation and behavior up and down the supply chain that we just didn't see before.
Yeah, the conversation is starting, and or has started, and is continuing. But I think more and more companies, like you were saying, are asking some of the key questions and wanting to know how they can do better and how they can change their impact in certain areas. And I think that's all good. I mean, even if nobody has all the answers, everybody's learning as we go along. This is a fairly new field when you look at the thousands of years people have been farming, it's another iteration, and we're just trying to move forward at each step of the way. So great that you are starting the conversation with some of those others that you interact with and supply to say, you're impacting us. So let's chat about this because we have some goals and we want to help you help us reach those. So that's all very important. Well, in the impact area, I know once we get past the farmer and what you're doing to any kind of processing before you send to your customers the product, is there innovation you'd like to share with us there once we get past the initial farmer piece that are helping in this area?
Sure. I think any company, as you look at a supplier, if they have science-based targets as a customer of ours, inherently there's going to be carbon reductions in the products that you're buying because your supplier is committed to ambitious targets. So that's kind of that first litmus test of, are we going to see innovation from these partners, from these customers? Well, of course you are, because they've made commitments to reduce their footprint. And we certainly look at our customers and think the same thing because it impacts our scope 3. We do think about, as I had mentioned before, sustainability and our environmental impact in the products that we manufacture and innovate. One of our latest innovations we announced earlier this year was in the Claria space. So clean label functional starches. Our engineering team and ICD team worked through the next iteration of our Claria products and came up with changes in the production process that really optimized production and decreased greenhouse gas emissions by 34%.
Wow.
And water use in the process by 35%. So
okay, again, big numbers, Anna.
huge numbers. And what that does is once you start doing it, the next thing is everybody kind of says, well, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, right? Like the innovation's hard, and thinking about the changes in the production process and implementing them and making the investments, all of those things take time. But going through the environmental calculations and pulling the data for the consultants, the feedback after it was, well, now we get it. We get what this feels like to go through the process. And then immediately after, good news is there's more conversations about, well, I think we could do this. And I think maybe because we tried this with Claria, we could try something over here, and maybe we can use less energy, or maybe we can use less water. So it was this great spark of a very focused, dedicated engineering effort to reduce the footprint that now has started all these other ideas generating under that purpose of reducing the environmental footprint of the products. So it's been incredibly energizing, I think, for our ICD team and for the engineering and the site involved, because again, there's real change there. There's substance there, and those products we've started to work with customers on. We're going to start the approval process and start full production, replacing our old Claria line in 2025. So those changes don't happen overnight, certainly. But when you see them happening and you can start to feel them and our customers can feel them, it's incredibly exciting.
Absolutely. And the teams that worked on that, then when they finish that and have such great results, and the numbers are 34 and 35%, I mean, those are just very large numbers. Then they turn around and they're like, well, what else? What else can I apply my knowledge in this area to now that I've gone through this one? So I can see where it would be energizing, and they can see where there are other applications in different processes, maybe different product lines, like you said. That's very exciting. Thanks for sharing your process with us on that, because that's really great. Tate Lyle I'm so impressed with what the company is doing, and you're leading in the sustainability area, partnering with the right people, the other experts in the areas where you need their expertise, and just bringing in everyone to have that conversation and bring in the brightest minds to put together to try to figure out how you move forward and make a difference. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about what you're doing, what Tate Lyle is doing, thoughts for the future in the sustainability area?
I will say that the sustainability space is not one that's slowing down anytime soon. There's a lot of expectations by customers, there's regulations, there's our own ambitions as a company when we look at sustainability. So I think it's definitely a space to watch and watch us in it.
Wow. That's exciting. Anna, thank you so much for being on our podcast today and sharing with us just really great insights into what's happening real time for real companies in the sustainability area, and the effort that's involved, and the collaboration and cooperation that's involved. I also want to thank our sponsor, Farm to Plate. Again, they're enabling better food supply chain management. You can find out more at farmtoplate.io.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.